Everybody, we've got a new face, and I'm delighted to welcome her to Freedom Digital Broadcasting and the Great Resist. We've got Cassie, who comes from the National Residents Association, and I've come across her through somebody that I know and said the person you need to talk to is Cassie. So, Cassie, you're very welcome. I'm going to talk to you and ask you how you started, or if you started with somebody else, the National Residents Association, what you aim to do, and how it's going. Welcome.
Hi, Liz. Thank you so much for having me. Okay, so National Residents Association. Well, it was born out of the emergencies that we face today, Liz, and there are a lot of emergencies out there. So what happened? Well, I started an original project called Align, an Alliance for Liberty and Integrity of Great Nations. And I was looking at all different segments, such as, schooling, mental health, all of these kind of fundamental segments, food, the lot. Now, after about a year of doing this, I realized that the overarching problem and the continual problem is that we didn't have the support of the general public. So I was having a conversation with somebody one day about a residents association. And I said, well, that's a very good idea. I'm going to start a national residents association. So that's how we kind of started. So it was mainly sort of like me, and there was a couple of others initially at the beginning part of it that were involved at kickstarting this process. And it really has, it's just a way and a vehicle to be able to get people to take you seriously from a non-conspiratorial perspective, because I think this has been the overarching problem as to why people have not been able to get their general public to take us seriously. And that's something that's fundamental for all of us. But what we've seen on the back of this is when people do, whether it's a local nuance, whether it's a 5G tower, whatever it might be, whatever the problem is, and that we are presented with so many problems, all we have to do is bring the general public in. So we have now seen people connecting with people locally that never knew anybody before. And I would sort of identify it and say, really, that they've built that fortress around themselves so that they are then known in their local area. So that is building a fortress of protection, because they're seen to be good, honest, trustworthy, decent people by their community. And because obviously they've eroded the community spirit for such a long time, and people don't know each other, or people too busy with being busy with their own lives, all of these kind of overarching problems is how we've driven to where we are today. And that's where we're kind of now, well, the National Residents Association, which could easily be turned into the International Residents Association, is to be able to reach out to our communities in that way so that we create that local pushback as where we need to push back. So for an example, with the councils are rolling out the agenda in the UK, and I would imagine this could be similar kind of municipalities or different kind of organisations in other countries, but with this is happening in the UK, we need to stop it at a council level in order to create that pushback, because we can't just go directly to the government and say we don't consent. We it's a cause and effect. We've got to do it incrementally and gradually, and obviously gradually you're building up to something so that you can push back nationally. So at a local level, now people are able to say, well, actually, we don't consent to this in our council meetings, and that is having more credence over their councils, holding their councils to account, which is fundamentally speaking our biggest issue that we are presented with today. So then people go, well, how do you do that? Well, actually, there's so many problems, Liz. We were talking about loads before we even started this. Cost of living is a great one. Now they're looking at getting rid of the fuel allowances. Now they're also looking at getting rid of bringing into being more solar farms. So what will that look like? Well, where's the food supply going to go? That's the next question. And it's things like that that start to awaken the community. And the community gets nervous and scared if there's not a vehicle for them to be a part of. Because when people feel unsafe, they react. from a fear-based mentality. So a lot of people allude to this, but if you give them something saying, well, actually no, we are the community and we are saying no, and we can all work together on this, it makes people feel more at ease, and then they feel safer, and that makes them feel more empowered. So it only takes like one person to start something like this off in one area, and then what happens is then you start to build and get to know people in your area, and it kind of should just go out. It's a bit like the butterfly effect.
It's fantastic. And you know, I've watched, when you talk about councils, that's something very close to my heart, because if you can get to your local council, and when I say get at your local council or get to your local council, I don't mean any physical way, but you can talk to your local councillor, because they should be living in your midst, and they should be there for the benefit of the constituents that the wards they represent. And of course, what happens is they belong to one party or another and follow the party line, unless the local people say, no, 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 we don't wish this. This is what we want. We don't want 12,000 houses here on good farming land. What do you think you're doing? So yeah, you're there to represent us. We're saying no. What are you going to do about it? Now, it's very hard when the residents turn up at the council meeting who've already spoken to their councillor and said, we don't want this. And so you're quite right. And this is where we start. We start at the bottom, bottom up, not top down. You're quite right, Cassie. It's wonderful.
Mm. Because you're right, Liz, because that is the overarching thing. And it's funny because one of the ladies from one of the residents associations, she's been out liaising with her new MP, who's just been recently put in, and he is against all solar farm, anything, food reduction, food supply, all of these kind of issues that we're, potentially going to start seeing widespread across the country if we don't stop it now. And I said, this is where we need to get the public support, because once we have the public support, once people realize that, only 60% of the food is grown in the UK nowadays, which is not a lot, really, 60%. And now you're seeing that they've gone in, I think they've got another 1,300 applications in for solar farms all across the UK. And their main preference is farms, as well as greenbelt land, as well as new residential developments. So where's the food going to grow? So that's where I'm kind of putting myself in that disposition at the moment, to help people be able to push back very quickly, because obviously they do have a lot of applications going in right now as we speak. But the only people that can do that is to be in the general public. That's why it's so important to have the general public take you seriously.
Absolutely. And Cassie, you're quite right. Cassie, I know you're the National Residents Association. Do you have sort of local branches? Tell me how this works.
So okay, so what we have is I'm the National Residents Association, but there's branches off of it. So people usually set up within their area, and I usually recommend to people, call yourself a name that is relatable to your area, so that people can relate to that, because then they go, well, that's Derby or Doncaster or wherever it might be. We've got a branch in the Highlands of Scotland. But what happens is then people go, oh, well, that's Moray, or that's Somerset, or, oh, I'm in that, So if they receive leaflets or receive content from the local residents association, then we let them know that they're working in partnership with the National Residents Association.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned the Highlands of Scotland, so you've obviously gone far and wide. You're across the UK. Well done. That's absolutely wonderful. And you've got your own website. I know this. So people can learn from the website. Is there a sort of blueprint for setting up a local residents association? Have you drawn anything up like that, or do people just act on their own volition?
No. I've got no. Well, there's a document that's been drawn up. So there's two choices. People can be incorporated or unincorporated. Now, from my own personal perspective, I don't want to be incorporated into anything to do, but everybody's different, so people see it from different angles. So some of our branches have set up and they've got themselves incorporated, but most haven't. So there is a document with that. Now, I also have training session videos that I've created. So I usually like to meet people myself first of all and have a chat of some description. And then I've got some training videos as to success stories and how we've gone about it and what we've done. And that kind of introduces people to the content that's been created, like tools to support them within their local area, because every area might have a different problem. So for an example, the team up in Scotland, they had a huge issue. So they don't really have the 5G issue per se, Liz, but what they do have is they had the council reach out to them and they sent them a leaflet saying there's going to be a climate emergency on the horizon. Yeah. So this climate emergency, they've advised them that, to prepare for any emergency situation. This came from the council. So obviously, naturally, what's happened then is the local people going, well, what climate emergency? So it's having to work with that problem. I would define that as something like a local nuance. Today I was speaking to a group down in London, and they said to me, "Oh, Cassie, two of electricity buses have gone up in flames in the last couple of weeks." I said, I said, it's not good that this has happened, but what that does do is that's creating a new local nuance. So that's a topic that you can work with in your local area, because obviously that's recently impacted people and people have seen it or heard about it. These kind of things are crowd pullers, Liz, to start the dialogue with the community.
I can see that, and this is why it's so important to actually all work together, because there are some things that are general across the whole of the country, and there are others that are just relative either to the countryside or to towns and cities. And so whatever your local residents association setup is can deal with whatever is not only national but the local things, the local nuances, as you said. What's your aim, Cassie, for the National Residents Association? What are your aims?
My aim is really that we can get more people doing this widespread across this country, because the more people do this within their local area and the more successes they have, that gives us the strength to push back at a national level. And that's what we really need. And again, that would apply even to another country. If somebody wanted to do this in their country, it would be the same kind of mentality, because we are not just beyond our keeping it within our echo chambers. We're not going to be able to change the course of history. But if we involve other people in our communities and incrementally everywhere, that will start to really turn the tide, Liz. That's how I see this.
Yes, you're actually right. Have you got some good examples of how you've been on the winning side?
Oh yeah. Okay, so a little while back there was one of the branches realized that there was a 5G application going up in their local area and they were going to upgrade this mast. So they went out with one of our 5G leaflets, and what they did was they created a little slip putting their residents association details on it, how to object to the mast, all of this kind of just a little bit of information. Now what happened was it was really interesting, because they did this and there was no objections, first of all, on the council website. Absolutely none. They had 79 leaflets, Liz. Okay, they delivered 79 leaflets. How many objections do you think, Liz, that they got after this exercise?
10.
119.
119.
Yeah, in total.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that goes to show that people don't want these things, but they don't know what to do, or they're uninformed about something, or they don't want something. You see what I mean? So if you empower people, even just by doing a simple exercise like this, has such a large impact. So anyway, a couple of weeks later, Swindon Residents Association, they found out that there was 4 masts going up, and it all in the same area, Liz, all in the same area. So what happened again? We thought, well, we've only got. So I said I'll help them, and I thought they only had 8 days to get this done, Liz. So obviously we just adopted that strategy as well. And I said this time actually, what we'll do is we'll create some posters to go in shops, like urgent, this kind of thing, shop windows. So we did that as well. So all of these things are templates that people can use widespread all over the country. All of the templates that we can, we've got can be modified. Anyway, so we went off, did the same strategy. And how many masks do you think we stopped out of the 3 out of the 4? Out of the 4, well, I've just told you. We stopped 3 out of 4. And yeah, so we stopped 3 out of 4. And the only reason we didn't stop the 4th one was because it was an industrial estate. So it's a huge success, really. But then further, a couple of days later, Swindon and Wiltshire Residents Association went to their local council meeting, and they asked their councillors if they were going to be putting ULEZ in the local area. They asked in 3 different ways. These councillors all said no. Liz, yeah, no, we're not doing that. No. So this is all recorded, by the way. And anyhow, the next day, this was like breaking news in the Swindon and Wiltshire Advertiser, which is their biggest local newspaper. And in addition, this news made it onto the BBC, which is unbelievable. So that's just some of the successes that we've had. And I mean, there was a guy the other day, and he did a public meeting with the general public in his local area up north in the UK. And out of this, he I don't know, he used one of our religious letters so that people can write to their religious organisations, in their local area to try and bring about peace in our local area. And one of the mosque leaders turned up to his meeting, and he knew all of the local other mosques in the local area and said he wants to work with their residents association. So yeah.
It's fantastic, Cassie, because this is what's so important. Is it's down at this level. It's at the ordinary people's level. Now, what people don't realise, and what I do realise, is that you kindly consented to come along to our event in Derbyshire on the 9th of November to speak. And I'm sure following this interview, I will have a glut of tickets sold. They're only £9 a head on the Fatsoma website, but we'll have a glut of tickets sold because people will want to carry out what you've done in other areas. Now, people come from all over the country to our events, so it isn't just from the local people in Derbyshire, it is from all over. So I can't thank you enough, and please bring with you any leaflets or anything on the National Residents Association. And I can't say how much I look forward to your enthusiastic talk, because you're like me, you've got a grin, and we all smile. That's it, absolutely right. Although it's really serious, you have to, we're actually turning the tide against these monstrous people who are trying to ruin our way of life.
Yeah. But we're going to make a better life, Liz, and we win.
Can I just say that I have no doubt, with that smile on the other end, I can see we're going to have no doubt. Winning, to me, winning has never been an option. Winning is the absolute must. It's not can we or can't we? Of course we can, but we won't be able to do anything unless we fight, and fight we do. Cassie, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to say before you finish this, or will you come back and talk to us again?
I'll come back and talk to you again. But if anybody does want to contact us, please feel free to get in contact with the National Residents Association. I'm very open to if people want to work with this internationally as well. So yeah, absolutely. Please do get in contact.
Well, I can tell you now, there'll be people, I'm sure, from both Canada and New Zealand in particular, who will be delighted because they're feeling very isolated in both those places. So thank you very much for coming and spending some time today. I know you're up against it this weekend, so bless you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you, Liz, for having me.